Hello everyone, I hope you're all well and looking after yourselves and each other as we continue through these strange times of this pandemic. My little boy, he's about 27 months now, he loves to read books and his favourite book at the moment is Zog. Now for anyone who's not familiar with Zog, Zog is a flying dragon who tries really hard at dragon school to win a golden star by learning the things that dragons need to know. The problem is, he's a little bit hapless and a bit clumsy, so no matter how hard he tries, he never quite gets it right and ends up having an accident and hurting himself. However, every time that Zog gets injured, a little girl called Pearl comes to Zog's rescue and treats his wounds. One thing that Zog has to learn is how to capture a princess, but he's really lousy at that. But Pearl, it turns out, is actually a princess, and Princess Pearl, wanting Zog to get a golden star, offers to be captured by Zog. So Princess Pearl goes to Zog and she treats all the dragons at the dragon school for their bumps and bruises and burns. But then someone comes to rescue Princess Pearl, a knight called Sir Gadabout. So Zog and Sir Gadabout get ready to fight over Princess Pearl, but Princess Pearl breaks it up. Pearl doesn't want to go back to being a princess. She actually wants to be a doctor. Travelling here and there, listening to people's chests and giving them her care. Sir Gadabout, it transpires, also wants to be a doctor really, not a knight, so he asks Pearl to train him up. But the problem is, to get around they need an ambulance that will carry both of them. Zog comes up with the idea that he can be their flying ambulance, and so the three of them fly away into the blue. My little boy loves this book. He loves to point out the characters and to say their names. And I have to be honest, I have to say I really love this book as well. I love the different themes that come out every time I read it, and that is a lot. I'm amazed by Zog, who tries really hard but never quite gets it right, but it all works out in the end for him. Or Princess Pearl, who's a born leader and doctor, but who's trapped as a princess. Or the friendship between Zog and Pearl and Gadabout. It's a great story. This got me thinking a bit about stories and how stories have the potential to change us and affect change in the world around us. This week I watched a really moving documentary. You might have seen it too. It was called Roman Kemp, Our Silent Emergency. And Roman Kemp, who is a radio presenter, shared his experience of tragically losing his best friend to suicide. Roman Kemp also shared his experience of having anxiety and depression. By sharing this story, he lifted the lid on something which is so prevalent around us or even within us. And Roman Kemp's encouragement to not just ask politely to our friends or family, how are you? But actually to ask a second time, okay, now really, how are you? Might just help us all to open up about how we are all really doing, and perhaps even help to prevent tragedies like Joe's from happening in the future. Sharing stories can change lives and affect change. As we move towards Easter, we are getting prepared to encounter a story which has the power to change us and affect change around us. It's a story about Jesus. This story can seem strange at times. It takes place in an ancient setting. There are ancient cultural and religious reference points. But even so, this story becomes alive to us because God makes it alive to us. This story involves Jesus processing as a king into Jerusalem on a donkey. It involves Jesus sharing a meal with his friends and washing their feet. It involves Jesus being betrayed by his friend and undergoing a trial where Jesus is unjustly convicted. It involves Jesus' brutal and inhumane death on a cross. It involves Jesus' burial in a tomb and after 3 days rising again from the dead. This story, I believe, helps to make sense of our own story. It's a story who reveals who God is and the depths of what God is willing to go through to reach out to us in love. And it's not just the story that we retell, but as we allow our hearts and our imaginations to run and wander through that story, God himself writes his story into our hearts, and the central character, Jesus, becomes a living reality to us. and we become part of his story. This short story shines a light on injustice and brings us freedom and hope, and has power to change us and the world around us. Are we prepared to be changed by the story of God's love?